Hey everyone, welcome back to the Scotch Malt Whisky Society of America on YouTube. Happy Friday, everybody. Ben Dietrich here, and as you can tell, pretty excited. It's a Friday morning. I guess any Friday morning when whiskey is involved is a good Friday. I don't think it's too often, but currently at 11 o'clock a.m. Central Time here, ready to introduce a pretty exciting whiskey. Thank you all for tuning in. First of all, I want to just give a quick shout out to Tom R. Tom R, once again, first in the chat. Welcome, Tom. Daniel Duggar, howdy, good to see you. Jose, good to see you as well. Listen, guys, really excited for what we have in store today. I think as you can tell from the description below, the title of this video, and if you're a society member, you probably got the email about this yesterday. Today, we are going to be tasting what is, in my opinion, one of the more exciting whiskeys we've had in a long time. It's specifically a US Exclusive Cask, only for US members, that has been also chosen by US members. And I think as an added layer of excitement, I think this particular cask, amongst all the others we released, is really sort of ripe for the colder weather. It's one that's really kind of falls in the range of what a lot of society members are gravitating towards in terms of style. And I just think it's a beast. So Daniel says, you're streaming when I'm not at work for once. Great to catch you live. Daniel, yes, I appreciate that. We're doing an early morning just because we know Fridays are a bit up in the air. A lot of times in the afternoons can be slow or busy. People are out, starting their weekends early. So yeah, I'm here in the morning, and quite frankly, I'm excited because the morning I always find is the best time to taste whiskey. It's not the most convenient, but just generally when your palate is fresher in the morning than it is at the end of the day after eating, several meals. The ability to taste whiskey, I think, for me, is just always heightened. So I love really dissecting whiskeys kind of earlier in the day. So with that said, we're not going to just be looking at me in my kitchen again today. I've also asked a couple of friends and colleagues who you both know to join me to make this a little bit of a round table thing. So with that said, welcome, Jen and Tom. So
happy Friday.
You guys all know Jenna and Tom. Jenna, of course, from this YouTube channel, and Tom, of course, from this YouTube channel. Tom is now the rising star of the US of America YouTube.
Oh my goodness. Rising blood pressure, maybe. That's about it.
It's kind of true. And so, yeah, first of all, welcome, guys. How are y'all doing?
Good.
Better now. It's
good.
It's a great way to start a Friday.
Yeah, looking forward to getting into this bad boy.
So, as I mentioned, Ryan says, nice kitchen. Thanks. Thanks. Yeah, look, we're stuck at home still in lockdown, ready to get back to the office. But yeah, Daniel says he's joining with 30.109, which is interesting because we'll be talking about a pretty similar whiskey, if I remember the specs on that one. So just real quick, guys, what we're going to do today, we have one whiskey to taste, as we mentioned in our emails and communications on social yesterday. This is our newest US Exclusive Cask. Just a brief word about what that is, if you don't already know. This is Scotch Malt Whisky Society, based in Edinburgh, Scotland, handpicks unique casks of whiskey from over 130 different distilleries in Scotland and really beyond now. Now we've really expanded to the world. Within that process of selecting whiskeys exclusively for our members, we have what's called our expert tasting panel. Every week, well, I guess with COVID, this might be a little different, but traditionally every week, the tasting panel gets together in person and blind taste tests a selection of different samples from casks that are currently maturing in our warehouse. And just through this process of blind tasting, they will choose which whiskeys really are right to be bottled, or rather ready to be bottled, based on a whole scoring methodology and just really a threshold of quality. And so last year was an interesting thing. I mean, Tom, maybe you were the ringleader on this. Tom, you want to kind of dive into really how this specific whiskey came into fruition, really how it differs from others that we release.
Yeah, for sure. Well, just a quick note, actually, Ben, on the tasting tasting panel. They did at one point taste blind. They have gone away from that, actually. They're given limited information, but enough information to make sure that what they're tasting, while it may be really interesting to their palate, to make sure that it's not technically flawed, with relation to certain parameters like distillery, age, so on and so forth. So it's not blind at this point, but it was not too long ago. And also, just so the members out there know, Ewan is actually busting a serious move out of his house in Edinburgh and parceling samples to the tasting panel members around the UK. So they're keeping it going, even though it's a huge pain in the butt for him. But they're keeping that whole thing going. But anyway, yeah. So I guess this was back in 2018. We were kicking around some ideas, and this was something that I came up with. I thought would be an amazing idea just for a member experience, which was to bring this tasting panel to our members in the US. Not everybody can make it over to make the pilgrimage over to the vaults and enjoy a tasting panel experience there. So we thought, why not try and bring it to them? And who better than to lead this merry band of tasters than Charlie Maclean. He's foremost expert in Scotch whiskey. He's written over a dozen books, and he was our very first chairperson of the tasting panel back in '92. So for years and years, Charlie has chaired the tasting panel and really kind of helped to mold a lot of the more veteran tasting panel members that we have today. So he was kind enough to free up some time last year, just about a year ago now, and come over to the US for a week. He and I embarked on an amazing airport tour of America, and it was a schlep, but man, was it fun. It was really cool. We started in New York, then we went down to DC, met up with you, Ben, in Chicago after that, and from there we hit the West Coast, Seattle, and then finished in Los Angeles at Tam O'Shanter. And of course we tried to to hold these events at bars that we partner with. So we were in New York State. We don't have any bars like that, but in DC we were at Jack Rose, had a wonderful crowd there. In Chicago we were at Fountainhead. We had an excellent crowd there in a really interesting space. And then Barrel Thief out in Seattle. Christopher, Brian, hello, gents, if you're out there. And then Tam O'Shanter, John Lindquist leading the charge there. So a great opportunity to educate our members on what the tasting panel experience is all about for about 2 hours or so. And then, the next 4 hours were spent basically sharing drams, sharing stories, generally having a pretty amazing time at these bars. So it was a really fun tour to execute. And while, kind of selfishly, it was amazing to spend so much time with someone like Charlie, who is so brilliant, yet absolutely accessible and down to earth. It really, I hope that the members got as much out of it as they seem to. Several of them said that, it was essentially an experience of a lifetime for them, which really made me very happy. A few were like, that's it, man, member for life here. And that's what we want, as the society. We want our members to be all in with us. And, it really was an immersive situation where, there's no food. It was a very sparsely decorated table. It was essentially the whiskeys to be tasted, some water, and the tasting, basically the blank tasting sheet to fill out. And that's very much how they do it in the UK. There's very little pomp and circumstance. This is a business transaction essentially. But Charlie led everyone through in each of these cities, about 30 people. We wanted to keep it intimate, and I also didn't want to ring up too much of a bar tab where I'd go broke on it. So so Charlie basically started with giving a bit of an introduction about his experience with the Scotch Malt Whisky Society and with Scotch whiskey in general, culturally and professionally, and then led into basically the process that goes on, and that's very simply nosing and tasting neat, and then nosing and tasting with the addition of water or after dilution, and he took everyone through each of these steps, and of course with plenty of flair and panache along the way. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think everyone came away certainly a little more knowledgeable about how to taste whiskey in a professional environment. And certainly, I think it's funny. We started in New York, and very few people were offering up notes when we were asking member participation. But by the end, man, Los Angeles, you couldn't keep them quiet, and it was tremendous to see how the members reacted in the different cities in different ways and stuff like that. But it was really interesting. I think they got a lot out of it. And at the end of the day, we weren't just there to have a good time. We were there to choose some casks. So we had 6 casks, which had not yet been assigned a number. So these were casks that had a few different bottles drawn out of them still in our warehouse. And we got these sample bottles, 750 ml bottles, to the different locations of our tastings. And essentially everyone tasted those, again, not entirely blindly. They had a little bit of information, but the point was to see which of these were most ready for our members at that time. And so out of the 6, we decided to take 3 and release them at a later date, which started earlier this year in August, and then in September, and now here in October, we're releasing our very last for the 2019 campaign. So, where was I? So we tasted through 3, essentially 3 unpeated and then 3 peated whiskeys. And the one we're tasting today was, as you might imagine, the last of the unpeated selections before we went into peat. And this scored, actually, out of the 3 that we've released, this scored second highest by less than 1/10 of a point. So, it was very, very close to the Glen Scotia. And then the Bowmore that we released, 3.315 last month, was, again, a very close third, maybe a little bit more distance, maybe 1.5 points. Now, we had invited the members to score on a 10-point basis. And that's very much how the society in the UK does it. And essentially anything that rates 7 or higher will be sent on to bottle. If it's lower than 7, then they take a different look at it, put it back in the warehouse for further aging. Maybe they consider a secondary maturation in a different cask. But 7 or higher is what gets to the US and the other chapters around the world. So so we tasted these neat after dilution, tallied up scores. I collected, it was like a teacher with a homework assignment, collected all the papers and brought everything back to New York when I was done and compiled a lot of data and found out that these 3 whiskeys were the best. So with great pleasure, here we are today. And we decided to do the lottery, right? Because we just feel like that's the fairest shot for everyone. Now with this one, this came out of a sherry cask, so a much higher chance, I think, of people actually being chosen.
Yeah, and just to back up too, Tom, but on the selection, because I remember there were the 6 whiskeys that we tasted, members tasted in 5s, and we participated, but our votes didn't count, which is a bummer because it was so much fun. But I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, the scoring or the votes were pretty close across the board, right? I mean, I think all 6 were really good. Maybe
they were all very close.
Yeah. But so
you're essentially splitting hairs. So it's I think the quality was certainly there. I think everyone agreed that of the 6 whiskeys that were tasted, the Glen Scotia was probably the most complete. It was also 17 years old, so that's a lot of time in cask. Yeah. But beyond that, I mean, the quality was absolutely there for each and every one of them, albeit in different manifestations. So the unpeated, we had a number. We started off with a number 5 from the lowlands. Then we had a number 26 from the highlands. Then we had number 30, and then it was a 4, 93, and a 3. So those were the ones that were chosen. And yeah, I mean, as you could imagine, just from the distillery codes, all very high quality product. And at the end of the day, there really wasn't much differentiation between the 6. But we had to pick some of them. So, we couldn't just.
I just remember being so much fun because obviously Charlie, as you mentioned, led the tasting. And it was, it was a great 5 events. Maybe we did 5 cities, but the same thing in 5 cities, essentially. It was great. What I appreciate about it is that as a bit of a whiskey nerd myself, I was able to go full throttle. But I think Charlie has a way of taking something that is pretty deep and making it accessible. I think you touch upon the accessibility of him.
Absolutely.
And I remember in our tasting, I'm trying to think of the members who were scoring. Yes, there were a lot who were really, really passionate, been members for years, but a lot of them were new too. And so it's cool that, I don't know, again, this is the 3rd cask that's been selected and voted upon by the members. But I think we all sort of kind of came to, I don't know, different conclusions as in terms of what they were. But
sure. And I mean, listen, and everybody had a voice, and you're right. It was a mix of folks fairly new to whiskey, and then others who were veteran collectors. And it's not always the veteran collectors who can taste better, to be honest with you. It's sometimes a bit of naivety and open-mindedness that allows you to dig a little deeper into whiskeys than those who think, oh, well, these are my favorites and this is what I know and that sort of thing. So, it's always eye-opening to see how the members kind of responded. But I think regardless of their level of familiarity with the world of Scotch whiskey, they all certainly garnered something from this experience for sure. And I couldn't think of a better host than Charlie. He was just great.
All right, so this is an empty glass. Mine's empty. Thomas, yours empty. I have a sample here.
Definitely not empty.
Jenna,
I already poured my sample.
The master schlepper has already had me. Okay, Jenna, you have the bottle. I mean, you have.
I do.
So let's. I mean, go ahead. Tell us about the whiskey. I mean, I know. Look, we've communicated on before. If you go to the link below, you'll see the link to our page in which you can kind of read all about it and enter the lottery for a chance to purchase. But walk us through this. Okay. Well, or just put a banner because it's.
Okay. But I'm going to walk you through it. I'm going to read the tasting notes because they're really exciting. And that's, one of my favorite parts of this is reading the tasting notes. So this is Cask 30.111, which is a 12-year Speyside from a first fill Spanish oak sherry butt, and called Inferno Toffee Pudding. And this is what it looks like. I feel like, I don't know how to do this from this way, but it is 64.6% ABV. And I'm going to read. Do you want to taste it first, and then we'll read the tasting notes? Or
I guess for you guys, for everybody watching, I know a lot of you have probably entered the lottery for maybe we go through the full kind of process. I mean, you lead us, Jenna. I mean, if you want to, should we all nose together, then I'll taste? Maybe we do that.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. So the tasting notes don't sway us in any way.
I'm going to hide the banner just so we're.
Yeah. All right.
Small.
The nose on this is just.
Yeah, it's got a pretty rocking nose. I'm definitely keeping my mouth open for that. It's a little prickly, as Charlie would say.
I just love that first, like when you take that first initial just like big whiff into your nose and you just want to like melt into the glass. Ooh. It is such an experience. And the color.
Stupid. I mean, that is just really, really deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's to point out too, it does say that, I'm sorry. So yeah, this is a first fill Spanish oak sherry bud. So just if there's any questions or if any of you are wondering, is this full term in a first fill cask? It is, which means the cask was used to age sherry, and then immediately the spirit that's now in our glasses and that were just released is in fact the next liquid to go into that cask. And so I think the color, very, very dark, obviously absorbed a lot of the sherry influence from the oak that was used to sherry before it. But Spanish oak, different from American oak. I mean, both are used commonly for sherry maturation. you can say American oak, probably more common for true sherry maturation, but with this, it's a very spicy tannic species of oak. And so I don't know, I got a lot of that right away, like just the Christmas spice and sort of that herbaceousness, a little bit of like clove and like a little bit of cardamom.
I find this to be so fragrant. It is, I'm getting more of like there is definitely that spiced cloviness, but then there's also this like kind of really beautiful fruity floralness to this that, I don't typically find in a lot of, full maturation sherry cask. This is something very unique. And again, it's so fragrant. I mean, you could sit with this for a while and really dig into this, just on the nose alone.
Yeah, a bit of like, I mean, typically we would expect darker confection, right? Like maybe caramel or toffee or something like that. But I'm getting more of like a spicy honey, something like, a bit more high toned.
Andrew Pierce says that looks more like a solid than a liquid. It's
just maple syrup.
That is a highly concentrated sherry bomb. I mean, keep in mind, everybody. I mean, when you see a bottle of sherry matured whiskey on the shelf, most of the times it's not bottled at cask strength, which is in this case 64.6%. So if a bottle of whiskey is diluted prior, or the whiskey is diluted prior to bottling, that's obviously going to lighten up the color. So this is really just in its purest form, in all its darkened glory.
Yeah, and
yeah, man,
definitely getting tons of that spice you're talking about, Ben. But there is certainly a sort of a damp soil kind of earthy situation below that.
Yes.
I'm going to taste it neat. I mean, if you guys...
Let me ask you guys, Rick, before you taste, let me ask you something, because this came up. I remember this specifically with this whiskey, because Charlie said it on a few different occasions that he got just a whiff of struck match. Do you guys get that here? Because I certainly got it when we were at the venues, but I'm not really getting it here.
I feel like it's one of those things. I'm sorry, Jenna, you go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think there's like a burnt wood almost.
Yeah.
Like there's a very woody, but like, I don't know, like the fireplace smell at Christmas time or around the holidays when people are like burning fires in their fireplace and that smell of fireplaces going.
Yeah.
That you get like a little bit of that in there.
Right.
It's more of a wood smoke than say like a sulfuric note,
Right. Yeah, for sure. It's just interesting because it seems to have changed a bit,
Multi-Alt asks, how does this compare to 30.109 and 30.111? Maybe we taste it first. I to be frank, I haven't tasted this since the earlier sample.
Right.
And actually, Tom, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. The samples that we tasted with Charlie last year when we all voted on these whiskeys, it hadn't been bottled yet, right?
No.
So these whiskeys were actually younger last year than they are now. They've spent more time, so they were approved. And I remember like
they were bottled in late November of last year. Yeah. So we had the tour and I collected all the information, and probably a week before Halloween, I submitted all of that information to the UK, and then we went through the process of bottling and label design. So, yeah. And if you recall back to our first session of this with when Charlie joined us for the Glen Scotia for the 93 140, remember, Ben, you had asked like, and a member got to name this. And I said, actually, well, I named it. Yeah, sorry to burst your bubble there. But with this one, a member did actually name it. So
we did. That's right. With the scoring and everything, we also gave every participant the chance to submit their own name based on the experience. And that's kind of the ethos of our names.
It wasn't just the scoring, right? It was a submission of all of the aromas and flavors they got, neat, and with the addition of water. And of course, we invited them to name the whiskey. And me, being the jovial, slightly buzzed fella that I am at these events, proceeded to offer anyone and everyone a 6-pack if they actually got their whiskey chosen. And needless to say, I am sending a 6-pack of this whiskey out to Los Angeles to the person who named it.
Can we taste it now?
Yeah, yeah.
Like nosing this. I haven't tasted it yet, so my mouth is watering over here. Okay, well, cheers, fellas.
Cheers.
Wow.
64.6%. Was that hot? I mean, for me, that was kind of a
64.6.
strangely approachable for me.
It's not shy. It's definitely not a shy whiskey.
You just get it in that initial little, like, you know, spark on the tip of your tongue, and then it really mellows out. Wow.
Damn.
Yeah, I was into that. You know, it's interesting. I'll just kind of share a thought. This first impression with all the this spirit from Distillery 30, predominantly sherry matured whiskeys. I find with like this style that we call the sherry bomb, like that's a nickname of the style, a heavily sherry matured whiskey, high strength. When you look at like Speyside, I think there's a lot of the sherry bombs originate from Speyside. You have, I think, one of two things. Or actually, if you look at all of Scotland, Speyside and Highland, all the sherry bombs produced, you have like either the sherry cask influence over a very fruity and sweet spirit that you kind of find in Speyside. Then you have, or you can have sherry over sort of an earthy and dried, damp wood sort of profile that you get a lot from the Highland whiskeys. This is a Speyside whiskey, but I love. I'm not gonna play favorites, but I tend to gravitate towards this style because I think it has beneath the sherry a really nice balance of sort of orchard fruit, drizzled honey, combined with like a very unique earthiness that is more reminiscent of like a Highland whiskey. So for me, I always get excited when we have these because it's a very well-rounded, you know, sherry matured whiskey or sherry bomb. That's my 2 cents on.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're all searching for more complexity, right? I mean, we're not looking for monolithic liquid here. You know, we want things that are going to offer us a lot of different bells and whistles in the glass, and this from the entry to the mid palate to the finish is really on a high octane situation. I'm getting all kinds of like treacle and like if Scottish tablet were like melted down, like that kind of stuff going on. Browned butter and silky, sweet, spicy stuff. That's really good.
Yeah, it definitely evolved on the palate. So you get that nose and it's so fragrant, and then on the palate, in the beginning it is that kind of like earthy and like it just tastes very moody, and it really kind of evolves into like this little sweetness, this little sweet spot in the middle that kind of pushes out back on that earthy note. And it's kind of one of those roller coaster whiskeys where it just, you can like actually taste the evolution on your palate, and it's really awesome.
Yeah,
I think this
definitely
one,
not one-dimensional. I
agree, Jenna. I mean, I think this is more on the earthy side. I mean, going back, I have actually added some water, I think, which kind of brought out the character a bit more. But for me, it's really herbaceous, sort of dampened wood, I said. But I'm thinking like I get a little bit of clove and thyme, like a very unique kind of a sort of note of thyme. But then when you said the words like sweet, it wasn't there until you said it. Then all of a sudden I was able to detect the sweetness. Like if you go looking for it, I feel it's there. But compared to some other casks from this distillery of the same cask type that we released, this is more on the sort of the dry, earthy side for me. Yeah, I
think overall, if you were to categorize it, I think that's definitely it. But in tasting it, again, it's like those little waves, and you definitely hit a little sweet spot, like right in the middle of your palate. And then it just kind of evolves back into that, gorgeous earthiness that I personally love.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read the tasting notes. All right, so this says, an alluring appearance of polished mahogany yielded to a mellow nose of creme brulee, date molasses, Christmas pudding aflame, and individual aromas of cinnamon, golden sultana, prune juice, and prickle of burnt toffee. We noted a lovely warmth of Indian spices and a scent of old leather and well-aged tawny port. With the addition of water, we were delighted with banoffee pie. I love banoffee pie. Chopped hazelnuts and a single struck match just in vanilla custard. The palate was superbly creamy at first, sweet fudge and dense like a good malt loaf. Water brought out Irish coffee, cracked black pepper, and toasted marshmallow, a thick and hearty delight. What do you think?
I think those are a lot of tasting notes.
It's a pretty good tasting note, I'd say. That's pretty solid.
Yeah.
It makes me want pie.
And somebody actually in the chat, Daniel was talking about getting a salinity savory from 30.109, and that power of suggestion, of course, is a very real thing. And then all of a sudden, I'm picking up all this like kind of salted caramel from this one. But I don't know. So much going on in here. You can just pick and choose.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely one of those whiskeys that you can just like really sit and take your time with. It's not one. I feel like this is like a moody moment whiskey. Like, put on some cigarettes and turn the lights down and light a candle and have a big slice of pie. And sorry, I'm all about the setting.
I'm just a basic dude. I'm sorry. I was thinking like if I was snowblowing the driveway in the middle of the winter, I'd pour a glass of this and just drink that. Not as an exotic of a sort of environment, but I think that would get the job done too.
Well, I might start by sourcing some sticky toffee pudding. See how that goes.
Go.
I mean,
or you can make a banoffee pie.
I can. Can
yeah,
I? Are you sure?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm not a very good cook.
That's okay. I would be happy to send you a recipe and happy to walk you through it. They are delicious. And
what about overnighting me a pie? Could you do that?
I could do that as well.
Okay. That's more in my wheelhouse. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you could be my like gold belly person type thing.
I'm all about the treats.
Indeed. So, if I may, I want to just give a tip of the cap to Nicolette Barishoff out in the Los Angeles area. I believe it's Thousand Oaks, where they are. But anyway, Nicolette and her husband Clay are amazing members. You two are absolutely fantastic. And when I saw Nicolette's titles for the different whiskeys, I thought, man, one of these has to get picked. And indeed it did. So they were with us at Tam O'Shanter. And Charlie did end up choosing Inferno toffee pudding. So congratulations to you guys. You are the winners of a shiny 6-pack of this whiskey. So if anybody's in LA, you guys can chase them down for a taste. Otherwise, make sure you enter the lottery because there are a few bottles to go around. Chances are you'll probably win. And if you don't, then talk to Ben. He'll sort you out.
Well, I think we should mention too that so far as of this morning, we have had more entrants than we do bottles to go around.
We have. Okay.
Yeah. And so, look, the good thing is that we're entering sort of the October, November, December, fall and winter months. And Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, if you don't get a chance to order one of these for yourself because you weren't picked on the random lottery, we do have some other casks that are very similar in style. Other sherry bombs coming down the pipipeline. Beginning with, I think, Jenna, we're back next week for a little preview tasting.
Yes, on October 5th, we will be back to kind of give the sneak peek of our October outturn, and it is ripe with great picks. So we'll have some really fun stuff coming out. I think the next few months, to kind of end this year out, we're pulling out all the stops, and it's really exciting to see what's in the pipeline. So we'll be back on Monday.
Yeah, so just express if you guys are excited for this style of whiskey. I don't blame you. I think a lot of us are. If you have a chance to order one because you're picked, amazing. We wish you luck. If not, I'm just saying don't fret. This is where I wish we can just reveal everything, up front, but we can't. Just trust us. We have a lot more coming out.
October, November, December is going to be pretty fun for everybody.
Yeah.
So yeah. stay tuned. Should we mention anything about our mid-October plans here, guys, or do we just let them find out via email?
Go ahead, Tom. I mean, I think you guys are here hanging with us on a Friday.
So the stage is yours.
Tasting panel, great. I've taken down half of my dram here, so I'm feeling pretty good. Anyway, so obviously this cask and the two that came before it were a product of the 2019 tasting panel experience. We had an entire 2020 experience already lined up back in January. However, things have changed quite a bit since then. So as a bit of a feeble substitute for this, we still want to bring some casks to our American membership. And so we felt, since we couldn't bring these casks, or these samples rather, out to bars with the current state of things, that Ben, Jenna, and myself would act on behalf of you, the American member of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, and taste with Charlie 6 brand new samples, which we will be doing on Thursday, October 15th, I believe. And you'll see an email about that in not too long. But essentially, what we're going to do is get 6 samples together, taste them through like we would have in an event scenario, and then about a week later, we will send out an email giving folks the complete tasting note and allowing members to vote on these 6 whiskeys. So we hope that you tune in and actually watch us do the tasting. Otherwise, you can go into our YouTube library at your leisure and check it out. But it'll be an opportunity for you to provide us some input. Now, granted, you won't be able to taste like we will, but hopefully in 2021 we'll get this program back up and rolling again. So that was the little teaser I wanted to mention to everybody. That's it. You guys want to add anything?
No, I'm stoked. I mean, I just think it's the opportunity. Just been fortunate to be able to do this, just to participate in a cask selection. It's so much fun. It just tastes of whiskey, it hasn't been yet born. It's just, well, I mean, it's maturing in a warehouse, and coming back now a year later and tasting this after tasting it a year before, when it was a slightly younger age, but we're just reminiscing on that. It's such a fun thing. I appreciate that, Tom, that we kicked off this initiative. I commend you for doing it last year and starting this, because I think it's just been for all of us, not just in our team, but for members in the US, so much fun to participate and to actually see this. It's just crazy how time's flying by. Like a year's gone by already, and I'm just looking ahead, thinking,
dude, I've been doing this since 2016. I don't know where the time went. I have no idea, but it's been great. It's been awesome. So,
but on that, I mean, guys, we're always, I mean, the 3 of us and the rest of our team, and we're always looking for new ways for all of us as members to get involved and do fun things related, not just sort of ordering bottles of whiskey, getting together for tasting, but sort of get more engaged with Scotch whiskey and really our shared passion as we can. So this is one step, in that direction, Tom, that you've kicked off last year for us, and continuing this year. But if you guys have any suggestions of other things you'd like to participate in, throw out your whiskey dreams, and we'll try our best. No promises. But
may all your dreams come true. That's
that was tacky.
Sorry, that does not translate on a national level. Forget it.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, Jason R said it's going to be all sherry and peated whiskeys. That's not true. There have been some non-sherry and non-peated whiskeys that I've, like, I don't know. My palate's always evolving and changing, and I think that goes for all of us. Our palates are, always evolving, and I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
We'll see, because with this project, we're dealing with the collective palate, right? So it's the palate of everyone, together, not just one of us. So we'll see. I mean, perhaps with this next round of whiskeys, there will be, ex-bourbon chosen. I'm not sure. We will just have to wait basically 2 more weeks and find out.
Yeah. Well, now is the moment where we all realize that we actually still have a lot of work to do today. And this dram is really we really kind of kick off the weekend pretty nicely, but there's a lot of time between here and then. So everybody, I think we wish you a wonderful weekend and best of luck with the lottery drawing. Again, look at the description below to enter. You can read more about the whiskey, of course, if our musings didn't really suffice, and then enter. And then Tom, what's the deadline, or what's the for entering?
Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. So
Okay.
just do it if you haven't done it yet. We might as well do it right now. But anytime over the weekend. So up to noon Eastern time on Monday, that's when we'll close the lottery, and within the hour or two, you will be contacted if you're among the first wave. So yeah. So good luck to everybody, and thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
Thanks for being here, Tom, the rising star of YouTube. Cheers, guys.
This was great. Cheers,
we'll be
guys.
back on Monday with our outdoor preview tasting.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.